how the book of Genesis doesn't really go into the personality of Nimrod. It doesn't go into his exploits. It doesn't go into some of the things that he accomplished and did while he was in the earth. It just sets a stage for us to basically assume the type of person that he was based upon what Genesis tells us about him, that he was a mighty hunter, that he was a man of renown, that you know um he basically was a man of war, right? We know how great he was, famous in his time, but it doesn't give us a lot other than a small portion in the book of Genesis to glean from. But you have the books of Jubilees, you have the book of Yasher, uh book of Jubilees, which is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, book of Yasher, which is used by many I would say Jewish scholars that they read from. And these things go into more detail about Nimrod, about different characters, about Ham, about the sons of Noah. Whereas Genesis, I tell you guys this all the time, Genesis sticks to relevance. If it is not relevant to what must be conveyed, Genesis does not deal with it. um Moses is known to be the author of Genesis, and Moses had a set goal. His set goal was to show the beginning of all things and how Israel came into being. Anything outside of how the world came into being, and how the forefathers of the faith, how they birthed what became known as the children of Israel, anything other than that is not relevant to Moses, so he does not put it in Genesis. So this is why you have Jubilees, and this is why you have Yasher, which was also read and understood. um and they go into more detail because they don't hold to that same type of relevance. Okay, because we get a lot of people. I know I've encountered a lot of people over the years who they always ask questions like why isn't this in Genesis, or why doesn't it say this, or why doesn't it say, because it's not relevant. It's not relevant to the point. Genesis is about the beginning, but it's a beginning of a people. Okay, it's the beginning of the decrees of the Lord. It's the beginning of creation. Anything outside of that is not dealt with in Genesis. Okay. So like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of reading, and we're going to be continuing um this introduction to Nimrod. Again, I want to go over what we went over last week a little bit. We went over Nimrod's character, what the scripture says about him in Genesis chapter 11. What we went over, the Tower of Babel. We went over what happened during those days, and how they came to making it, which was, it was Nimrod's idea to construct such a tower. He caused the people to come and come together and have this confederate type mind to come against the Lord. He introduced the people of God into to idolatry, um way more than what they were experienced in. I mean, he introduced these things to them. He used his influence to 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 usher in a culture that was not the culture of heaven, that was not the culture of his forefathers, that was not the culture of Noah. And what Noah, because Noah followed a priestly culture that was passed down to him from his grandfather and his grandfather's father. Okay. um Noah Noah followed that culture, a priestly culture, a righteous priestly culture that was passed down from Adam through Seth, down through the generations till we get to Noah. And Noah prepared his sons, as we see, and some of the other writings that have been found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and in the book of Yasher. We see that Noah went and took the time to tell his sons the ways of the Most High. And it is his sons that take it upon themselves, his sons' sons, that take it upon themselves to go the other way and go against that culture. They began to usher in cultures that were not that they were not taught. Okay. We went over how an artifact was found during that time, according to the book of Yasher, how an artifact was found during that time by Nimrod, and he used that artifact to basically perpetuate what the fallen angels had been teaching, the ones who died during the flood. Okay, um, so let's get into that. Listen, I just want to say welcome you guys to Kononia Shalom midweek Bible study. Um, I thank you guys for always coming and being here. And I know you guys are excited for us to continue because last week, I mean not last week, 2 weeks ago when we did the Bible study, we had a good time reading to the point that you guys didn't even want me to stop reading. Let's just continue in that same vein and let's get excited about these things because we the purpose of all of this is to give context to what we've been reading for years but had really no definitive answers to, and really no some things we had to play by faith, but unbeknownst to us we have Jewish scholars, uh I say that loosely, Jewish scholars, and we also have other writings that were found in the Qumran community that shows that the people of Israel, the children of Israel, that they read and understood um more than what we read and understand today. That we have basically we have part of the story but not the full story. We have part of the understanding but not the full understanding. I mean, there's so many books that have been written concerning the faith, but some of them have been lost through the time, some of them have been lost through the era, war, different things of that nature. But the things that have been preserved for a reason, and it's for us to not discard them and have the same mind of people that shun these things away because to them it was witchcraft, or to them it was error, erroneous, and things of that nature. It went against their theology. um not to share in those same plights, but to look at them ourselves and allow the Holy Spirit to minister to us what is true and what is not. And so far, everything that we have been reading in the book of Jubilees, everything that we have read in the book of Enoch, everything that we have read in the book of Yasher coincides with what we are seeing in the 66. Matter of fact, from what we have been reading, the 66, especially in the New Testament, they quote from these books. But let's get into it. Let's get into it. Today I'm gonna actually be sharing my screen because I know some of you do not have the book of Yasher. So I'm gonna share my screen so that way you can read along with me. I use the Sephir app, or you can use the Pseudepigrapher app, or you can use the you can download if you actually type in, if you have Apple, any type of Apple device, if you type in Book of Yasher, you can actually download the Book of Yasher on your Apple device. And it'll be a brown book. You'll be able to download it. I actually want to share my screen concerning that, and let's get into this. Oh, I just realized my camera wasn't on. Let's get into this. Where's the page? And let me know when you guys can see the screen. Uh, can you guys see? Okay, thank you, Cassette. Okay, this is Yasha chapter 10. This is what when we last read, we matter of fact, let me read. I'm gonna actually read from chapter 9, and I'm gonna read like I'm gonna say the last 4 or 5 verses. So Matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 33. Verse 33 says, "And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builders took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. And Yahuwah, or the Lord, smote the three divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, we will ascend to heaven and serve our gods, our Elohim, they became like apes and elephants. And those who said, we will smite the heaven with arrows, Yahuwah killed, the Lord killed them, one man through the hands of his neighbor. And the third division of those who said, we will ascend to heaven and fight against him, Yahuwah the Lord scattered them throughout the earth." Verse 36. "And those who were left amongst them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore, he called that place Babel." Remember, Babel meant to mix new elements into existing ones. We know it to mean to confuse. We know it to mean yeah, confusion. It is a city, things of that nature, but it comes from balal. Balal means to mix or to mingle or confuse or confound. Okay. So therefore he called that place Babel, for there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. And as to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part of thereof. And a fire also descended from heaven and burned another third, and the other third is left to this day. And it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. Now we get into chapter 10 of Yasha. "And Peleg, the son of Eber, died in those days, in the 48th year of the life of Abram, son of Terah. And all the days of Peleg were 239 years. And when the Lord Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men on account of their sin at the tower, behold, they spread forth into many divisions, and all the sons of men were dispersed into the four corners of the earth. And all the families became, each according to its language, its land, or its city. And the sons of men built many cities according to their families, and all the places where they went, and throughout the earth where Yahuwah had scattered them. And some of them built cities and places from which they were afterward extirpated, and they called these cities after their own names, or the names of their children, or after their particular occurrences. And the sons of Japheth, which is Japheth, the son of Noah, went and built themselves cities in the places where they were scattered, and they called all their cities after their names. And the sons of Japheth were divided upon the face of the earth into many divisions and languages. And these are the sons of Japheth, according to their families: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavin, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus. These are the children of Japheth according to their generations. And the children of Gomer, according to their cities, were the Franscom, who dwell in the land of Franza by the river Sina. And the children of Rephatha are the Bartanim, who dwell in the land of Bartonia by the river Leda, which empties its waters in the great sea Gihon, that is Oceanus. And the children of Torgama are 10 families, and these are the names: Buzar, Pazanek, Belgar, Elikanum, Ragbib, Tarti, Bid, Zevuk, Ongo, Tilmaz. All these spread and rested in the north and built themselves cities. And they called their cities after their own names. Those are they who abide by the rivers Hiltha, and Italic unto this day. But the families of Angoli, Balga, Parzanic, they dwell by the river of Dumni, and the names of their cities are also according to their own names. And the children of Yabin, now we know Yabin, let me click this here. The Yabinites are the Greeks. Those are people of Grecia. This was just a Hebrew word for Greeks. Okay. The children of Yabin are the Yabinim, are the Grecians who dwell in the land of what? This says Macedonia, which is what? Macedonia. And the children of Madi are the Orleum that dwell in the land of Curson. And the children of Tubal are those that dwell in the land of Tuscana by the river Pashia. And the children of Meshach are the Shivanashi. And the children of Tyrus are the Ruash or the Rushash. The Kushani, excuse me, hold on. This just blacked out. Let me go back. Okay. The Kushni and Ungalis, all these went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities that are situate by the sea, Yavuk or Jabus. Okay. By the river Kura, which empties itself into the river Tragon. Now, these are ancient names for places. And the children of Elisha are the Almanim. Okay. And they also went and built themselves cities. Though this is still talking about the children of Japheth, okay? Those are the cities situated between the mountains of Eub being Job, and Shavotamo, which is a region in Italia. And of them were the people of Lombardy, okay? Who dwell opposite the mountains of Eub and Shavotamo. And they conquered the land of Italia and remained there unto this day. Now we know what Italia is, y'all. That's literally the land of Italy. And the children of Kittim are the Romaim. Romaim are the Romans, okay? The Romaim, say it again, are the Romans who dwell, let me minimize this, who dwell in the valley of Canopia by the river Tiberu. And the children of Dodanim are those who dwell in the cities of the sea, Grihun, and the land of Bordna. These are the families of the children of Japheth. So, for a moment, the Kittinim are the Romans. Now, before the Romans became a massive empire, there were a people that lived in the land of Italia, because Rome is just one portion. Rome, when they came to power, they took over the whole land of Italia, and then they began to expand drastically throughout that area. We will see that when we get into later chapters. You will see that. One thing I love about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the entire Bible is very pinpoint when it comes to history, right? And then when you read the book of Yasha starts to tell you too what nations became one with who. So we're going to continue on this journey of reading these things to keep it in proper context, okay? These are the families of the children of Japheth according to their cities and languages, when they were scattered after the tower, and they called their cities after their names and occurrences, and these are the names of all their cities according to their families, which they built in those days. Excuse me. After the tower. And the children of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim being Egypt, Put, and Canaan. Okay, according to their generations. So Ham had Cush, Cush being Ethiopia, Mitzrayim being Egypt, Put being Libya, and then Canaan, according to their generation and cities. Now, do anybody remember what Canaan did when Canaan was given his allotted land? Do anybody remember? Can anybody tell us what Canaan did when Noah gave his sons land according to their lot, according to their inheritance? What did Canaan do? Do anybody remember? Can anybody tell us? I know one of y'all remember. Tiara, do you remember? Because Canaan did something. Go ahead, Tiara.
Oh, I want to say I do, but I think I don't. It's not him stealing the garments from the Garden of Eve, right? Eden, right?
That was Cush. Canaan
Okay.
did something with a parcel of land. Do you remember what he did with the parcel of land?
Uh-uh.
Okay. Canaan saw the land that was allotted to Shem.
Ah, okay, I
And he
remember.
went and took the land. Remember that?
Yeah.
And this is why Canaan resided in what became known as Israel. This is why when the children of Israel later on, when they come out of Egypt with Moses, who was their liberator at this time, they go to the land that was allotted to them, and there's already people there. And the reason why there was already people there, because Canaan didn't stick to the land that was allotted to him. And remember, his family, his father, his brothers, they counseled him not to take that land because that was not the land given to him by Lot. Do y'all remember that? How we went over that and we read that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue. And all these went and built themselves cities as they found fit places for them. And they called their cities after the names of their fathers. Cush being Ethiopia, Mitzrayim being Egypt, Put being Libya, and Canaan being Canaan. And the children of Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, are the Ludi, the Anaim, the Enmaim, the Lehaim, the Nephutahim, the Pethusim, the Kaluchim, the Kaphtorim, 7 families. These all made up what is known as Egypt. These are 7 families, 7 sons. Okay, all these dwell by the river Shakor, that is the brook of Mitzrayim, the brook of Egypt. And they built themselves cities and called them after their own names. And the children of Paruk and Kaluk intermarried together, and from them went forth the Philistines. Okay? The Philistines. This is where they come from. Okay? And the Gazdiim. So, okay? And the Geraim, and the Gittim, and the Ekronim, and all 5 families, these also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers unto this day. And the children of Canaan also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after their names, 11 cities, and others without number. And four men from the family of Ham went to the land of the plain. These are the names of the 4 men: Sodom, Amorah, Adama, and Sevim. Now, I'm going to show you what these names are. Sodom is Sodom. Amorah is Gomorrah. Adama, and Sevim is Zion. Not Zion that we know connected to Israel, but the other one with the S. So Zion. Okay? And these men built themselves 4 cities in the land of the plain. Now I want y'all to remember these 4 names here: Sodom, Gomorrah, because we know Sodom and Gomorrah, Adama, and Zion. And these men built themselves 4 cities in the land of the plain, and they called the names of their cities after their own names. And they and their children and all belonging to them dwelt in those cities, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly and dwelt peaceably. And Seir, the son of Hori, okay, son of Kithi, son of Canaan, went and found a valley opposite Mount Paran, and he built a city there, and he and his 7 sons and his household dwelt there, and he called the city which he built Seir, according to his name, that is the land of Seir unto this day. The land of Seir unto this day is a place that was named after one of the Canaanite sons. Seir became synonymous with Edom because Esau's descendants end up taking over that land. Okay. These are the families of the children of Ham, according to their languages and cities, when they were scattered to their countries after the tower. And some of the children of Shem, son of Noah, father of all the children of Eber, also went and built themselves cities, and the places wherein they were scattered, and they called their cities after their names. And the sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Ludi, and Aram. And they built themselves cities and called the names of all their cities after their names. And Asher being the Assyrians, okay? Asher, son of Shem, and his children and his household went forth at that time a very large body of them, and they went to a distant land that they found, and they met with a very extensive valley. They met with a very extensive valley and the land that they went to, and they built themselves 4 cities, and they called them after their own names and occurrences. And these are the names of the cities which the children of Asher built: Nineveh, Resen, Kalak, and this is Rehoboth. And the children of Asher, which is the Assyrians, dwell there unto this day. Okay? So the children of Nineveh are actually Assyrians. Okay? Their father is Assyria. Okay? Their father is Asher, who is the father of the Assyrians. And these 4 places are named after these children of Asher. And the children of Aram also went and built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city Uz, or Uz, after their eldest brother, and they dwelt therein. That is the land of Uz to this day, or Uz. And in the 2nd year, after the tower of man from the house of Asher, after the tower of man from the house of Asher, whose name was Bela, went from the land of Nineveh to sojourn with his household wherever he could find a place, and they came until opposite the cities of the circle of Jordan against Sodom, and they dwelt there. So they came to the circle of Jordan against Sodom, and they dwelt there. And the man rose up and built there a small city and called its name Bela, after his name, that is the land of Sur, unto this day. And these are the families of the children of Shem according to their language and cities, after they were scattered upon the earth after the tower. And every kingdom, city, and family of the families of the children of Noah built themselves many cities after this, and they established governments and all their cities in order to be regulated by their orders. So did all the families of the children of Noah forever. Now, mind you, did y'all notice that this does not mention Terah? This does not mention him. It doesn't mention him at all as far as building a city. There's no city named after Terah. None. There's no city named after Nahor. There's no city named after Serug. There's no city named after Reu. There's no city named after Peleg. You get what I'm saying? There's no city named after Eber. Now, we do have an area where Arpachshad's sons were, but Terah is a descendant of that family. And we know most of these places, their names were made after their sons. Okay. Terah, we know there's no city named after him or his forefathers. Why? Because they resided with Nimrod. They resided with Nimrod. And we know that Terah was a high official in the court of Nimrod. Okay. Um, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Chapter 11. It says, and Nimrod, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built, and he called their names after the occurrences that happened to them in the building of the tower. And he called the first Babel, saying, because Yahuwah there confounded the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Erech, because from there God dispersed them. Elohim dispersed them. And the third he called Akkad. Akkad is the short version. I don't know if anybody know who the ancient Akkadians are, but this is that place. Saying there was a great battle at that place, and the fourth he called Kalna. Kalna. Because his princes and mighty men were consumed there, and they vexed the Lord. They rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes and his mighty men that were left in his kingdom. And Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and he there renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned securely. And the subjects and princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel. Amraphel, saying that at the tower his princes and men fell through his means. So his name changed, and the name that he bare was to blame him for the Tower of Babel. And notwithstanding this, Nimrod did not return to the Lord. He didn't return to Yahuwah, and he continued in wickedness and teaching wickedness to the sons of men. And Mardon, this is his son, was worse than his father. He was worse than his father. Mardon was worse than his father. Okay? And continued to add to the abomination of his father. So he walked in what is known as iniquity. Okay? And he caused the sons of men to sin. Therefore, it is said, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. At that time, there was war between the families of the children of Ham, as they were dwelling in the cities which they had built. Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, went away from the family. I need y'all, listen, these names, remember these names. Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, went away from the families of the children of Ham, and he fought with them, and he subdued them, and he went to the 5 cities of the circle of the Jordan, and he fought against them, and he subdued them, and they were under his control. If y'all got to write these names down, write them down. Kedorlaomer is one of those names. And they served him 12 years, and they gave him a yearly tax. At that time died Nahor, son of Serug, in the 49th year of the life of Abram, son of Terah, or Terah. In the 50th year of the life of Abram, son of Terah, Abram came forth from the house of Noah and went to his father's house. For those who do not know, before Noah died, Noah got to see a lot of his descendants. Okay? And Abram knew the Lord and went in his ways and instructions. This is in his 50th year, y'all. He knew the Lord, and he went in his ways and his instructions. And Yahuwah, his God, the Lord, his God, was with him. And Terah, his father, was in those days still captain of the host, King Nimrod, and he still followed strange gods. He still followed other mighty ones. And Abram came to his father's house and saw 12 gods, 12 deities, 12 idols standing there in their temples. And the anger of Abram was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. Now, we want to know what caused this major separation. Because remember, I told you I'm going to read up to the point that we get to where we are in line with Genesis chapter 12. And Genesis chapter 12 deals with the call of Abram, him being called from amongst his father. Okay. Now we know that when Abram was prophesied, well, when Abram was in his mother's womb, we know that there was, according to the book of Yasher, it might have been Yasher or it might have been Jubilees, that there was a sign in the heavens. The sun, moon, and the stars, according to the constellation, the men of wisdom of that time saw something in the sky, which was like a comet, and they attributed that star, that constellation, to Abram, and the prophecy was that Abram was going to become a great king, and he was going to destroy everything Nimrod had built, and he was going to kill 4 other kings. And Nimrod challenged, well, he actually commanded Terah to kill his son, and just to have more. And what Terah did in his wisdom was he asked Nimrod a question about a horse, because Nimrod had gave him a beautiful horse. And he asked him, if I was to take the gift you had given me and give it to another, or destroy it, how would that make you feel? Basically, I'm just summarizing. I'm actually ad-libbing as well. And Nimrod didn't like that, and he said, "This is exactly what you're asking me to do with my son." Terah did something similar to what Moses' parents did with him. But instead, Terah took one of his servant sons, okay, one of his, I would say, concubine sons, and he gave that son instead of giving Abram. Okay, and Abram went and was raised by Shem and Noah, because he could no longer stay with his father. When he came back with his father was in his older years. Okay, by that time they had forgot the prophecy, because they already felt like he was dead, because there was a child killed in Abram's place. Now we're getting here, and now Abram is coming, and he's seeing that his father has become so saturated with this culture of wickedness that has been perpetuated by Nimrod. His father is wrapped up all in it. Okay, so now we have to get into the mind of Abram during this time, because Abram is upset here. Now, mind you, Abram has been being raised by Shem. Okay, he's been being raised by Noah. He's actually following the son who actually followed what his father said, which was Noah gave his sons commandments to follow, and they agreed to do as such. And we know Japheth, we know Ham, and we even know some of the other sons of Shem disobeyed the instructions that Noah gave to them. But here we have little Abram being raised by Shem to follow after the ways of Noah, to follow after the culture of the kingdom, and do what is right. We have him returning to the land where his father is, right? After being so long away because of the attempt to take his life at a young age. We have him returning and seeing the situation that his father is in. His father is an idolater. And mind you, his father know the one true God. Now let's get into it. And Abram said, as Yahuwah lives, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall Yahuwah who created me do unto me if in 3 days' time I do not break them all. And Abram went from them, and his anger burnt within him. And Abram hastened and went from the chamber to his father's outer court. And he found his father sitting in the court and all his servants with him. And Abram came and sat before him. And Abram asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is God? Where is Elohim, who created heaven and earth, and all the sons of men upon earth, and who created you and me? And Terah answered his son Abram and said, Behold, those who created us are all with us in the house. And Abram said to his father, My Lord, that's where Adonai is, my sovereign, show them to me, I pray you. And Terah brought Abram into the chamber of the inner court, and Abram saw, and behold, the whole room was full of Elohim, full of gods, of wood and stone, 12 great images, and others less than they, without number. Without number, y'all. He had so many up in that room, up in that chambers, he couldn't even count them. Without number. This was serious to him. Okay? Because remember, he was part of Nimrod's court. He was like Nimrod's second in command because he was a man of wisdom. He was one of his counselors. Okay? So this man was saturated in this culture. He had the part. Not only did he became that culture. He became that culture. And Terah said to his son, Behold, these are they which made all you see upon earth, and which created me and you, and all mankind. And Terah bowed down to his gods. And he then went away from them, and Abram, his son, went away with him. And when Abram had gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her and said to his mother, Behold, my father has shown me those who made heaven and earth, and all the sons of men. Now, therefore, hasten and fetch a kid from the flock and make it savory meat, that I may bring it to my father's Elohim as an offering to them to eat. Perhaps I may thereby become acceptable to them. And his mother did so, and she fetched a kid and made savory meat thereof and brought it to Abram. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother and brought it before his father's Elohim, and he drew nigh to them that they might eat, and Terah, his father, did not know of it. So you mean tell me she out here making lamb chops for some idols, okay? And Abram brings it before the idols. And Abram saw on that day when he was sitting amongst them that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them can stretch forth his hand to eat. And Abram mocked them and said, Surely the savory meat that I prepared has not pleased them, or perhaps it was too little for them. For that reason, they would not eat. Therefore, tomorrow I will prepare fresh savory meat, better and more plentiful than this, in order that I may see the result. Now, I want y'all to remember something. When Abram was younger, do y'all remember when we read over that Abram, he always sought after the Most High? He would look at the sun, and when the sun would rise, he would say, Surely that is God, because it has risen and it has brightened up the whole earth. But then it went down and the moon came up, and he said, okay, surely that is God, because it caused the sun to go down, and it rose. But then that went down, the sun, and he saw the stars, and he thought it was the stars, and he just kept, and then he said, no, none of these things are God. God has to be controlling these things. Now he's at a place where he has always been trying to give an image to the God he was worshiping, to the God of Shem. He has always been trying to give an image to him. So he's looking towards these idols to see if these images will actually do the acts that he has been hearing about. Okay? And he's seeing that even these images, these idols, They need to speak nor articulate. They don't move nothing. Okay? And it's vexing him. And it was on the next day that Abram directed his mother concerning the savory meat. His mother rose and fetched 3 fine kids. So now she got 3, y'all, from the flock, and she made them some excellent savory meat, such as her son was fond of, and she gave it to her son Abram, and Terah, his father, did not know of it. So this whole time, Terah did not know that Abram was out here trying to feed these idols to try to provoke them to move. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother and brought it before his father's gods into the chamber, and he came nigh unto them that they might eat. And he placed it before them, and Abram sat before them all day, thinking perhaps they might eat. And Abram viewed them, and behold, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch forth his hand to eat, to the meat to eat. And the evening of that day in the house, Abram was clothed with the Ruach Elohim. He was clothed with the Spirit of God. He was basically graced. And he called out and said, woe unto my father and this wicked generation, this evil culture, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, hands without feeling, and legs which cannot move. Like them are those that made them and that trust in them. And when Abram saw all these things, his anger was kindled against his father, and he hastened and took a hatchet in his hand. Come on now. Let me get back. I hate when I do that. Excuse me, y'all. He hastened and took a hatchet in his hand. And when he had, sorry, let me get right. Yeah, he hastened and took a hatchet in his hand and came under the chamber of the God, and he broke all his father's gods. And when he had done breaking the images, he placed the hatchet in the hand of the great God, which was there before them. And he went out, and Terah, his father, came home, for he had heard at the door the sound of the striking of the hatchet. So Terah came into the house to know what this was about. Y'all, Abram broke all these idols, and then the biggest idol, he put the hatchet in its hand. And Terah, having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, ran to the room of the images. Ooh, this thing getting on my nerves. Because it keep blinking out like this. Sorry, y'all. Ran to the room with the images, right? And he met Abram going out. And Terah entered the room and found all the idols fallen down and broken, and the hatchet in the hand of the largest, which was not broken, and the savory meat which Abram his son had made was still before them. And when Terah saw this, his anger was greatly kindled, and he hastened and went from the room to Abram. And he found Abram his son still sitting in the house, and he said to him, what is this work you have done to my God? What did you do to my gods? What did you do to my mighty ones? What did you do to them? And Abram answered Terah, his father, and he said, not so, my lord, for I brought savory meat before them, and when I came nigh to them with the meat that they might eat, they all at once stretched forth their hands to eat before the great one had put forth his hand to eat. And the large one saw their works, that this man funny, that they did before him, and his anger was violently kindled against them, and he went and took the hatchet that was in the house and came to them and broke them all, and behold, the hatchet is yet in his hand, as you see. And Terah's anger was kindled against his son Abram when he spoke this. And Terah said to his son, he said to Abram his son in his anger, what is this tale that you have told? You speak lies to me. Is there in these Elohim Ruach? Is there spirit in them? Is there life in them? This is what he said, y'all. See what Abram did cause the truth to be exposed. This man said, is there life in these Elohim? Is there a spirit? Is there a wind? Is there a breath? Because this is what Ruach means. Is there a breath in these gods, in these idols? Soul or power to do all that you have told. So soul speaks to emotion, it speaks to intent. Do they have soul? So not only is he saying, do they have breath, but do they have soul? Do they have an inner working? Do they have power? Do they have ability to do all you have told me? Are they not wood and stone? And have I not myself made them? And can you speak such lies, saying that the large one, the large Elohim, the large mighty one that was with them smote them? Is it you that did place the hatchet in his hand and then say he smote them all? And Abram answered his father and said to him, and how can you then serve these idols in whom there is no power to do anything? Can those, I mean, that's a clap back right there. Can those idols in which you trust deliver you? Can they hear you? Can they hear your prayers? When you call upon them, can they deliver you from the hands of your enemies? Or will they fight your battles for you against your enemies? That you should serve wood and stone, which can neither speak nor hear. And now surely it is not good for you, nor for the sons of men that are connected with you to do these things. Are you so silly, so foolish, or so short of understanding that you will serve wood and stone and do after this manner? And forget the Lord your God, Yahuwah Elohim, who made heaven and earth, and who created you in the earth, and thereby bring a great evil upon your souls, and this matter by serving stone and wood? Did not our fathers in the days of old sin in this matter? And Yahuwah Elohim of the universe brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed the whole earth. See, this is the thing. They're forgetting that the reason why Nimrod went to war, wanted to go to war against the Yahuwah, the reason why he built the Tower of Babel, because he wanted to get revenge on his forefathers that died during the flood. This is what he said. Because he found an ancient artifact that showed what they were doing, how they were serving idols and things of that nature, the different worship and the different things, how to build and different stuff. Nimrod found all that stuff. Started teaching it to his people. And he wanted revenge for them. And how can you continue to do this and serve Elohim of wood and stone, who cannot hear or speak or deliver you from oppression, thereby bringing down the anger of Elohim of the universe upon you? Now, therefore, my father, refrain from this and bring not evil upon your soul and the souls of your household. And Abram hastened and sprang from before his father and took the hatchet from his father's largest idol, with which Abram broke it and ran away. And Terah, seeing all that Abram had done, hastened to go from his house. And he went to the king, and he came before Nimrod and stood before him, and he bowed down to the king. And the king said, what do you want? And he said, I beseech you, my lord, to hear me. Now, 50 years back, oh, this man is a snitch. He telling on his own son. Y'all see this? He got upset with his son for destroying his idols and rebuking him for something he knows to be true. And he decided that he gonna go tell Nimrod on his son. Do y'all see this mess here? Against his family. That man got no loyalty to his own blood. Look at that. That man said about 50 years back, a child was born to me. And thus has he done to my Elohim, and thus has he spoken. And now, therefore, my Lord and King, send for him that he may come before you and judge him according to the law, that we may be delivered from his evil. This is his father, y'all. This is his father. And he's bringing him before this wicked king, whose son is even more wicked than he is. And the king sent 3 men of his servants, and they went and brought Abram before the king, and Nimrod and all his princes and servants were that day sitting before him, and Terah sat also before them. And the king said to Abram, this is Nimrod talking, what is this that you have done to your father and to his Elohim? And Abram answered the king in the words that he spoke to his father, and he said, the large Elohim that was with them in the house did to them what you have heard. He gonna stick to this story, y'all. And the king said to Abram, had they power to speak and eat and do as ye have said? And Abram answered the king, saying, and if there be no power in them, why do you serve them, and cause the sons of men to err through your follies? Do you imagine that they can deliver you or do anything small or great, that you should serve them? And why will you not sense the Elohim of the whole universe, who created you and in whose power it is to kill and keep alive? O foolish, simple, and ignorant king, woe unto you forever. This man coming crazy. I thought you would teach your servants the upright way, but you have not done this, but have filled the whole earth with your sins and the sins of your people who have followed your ways. Now, see, this is the thing. From the beginning, it has been Satan's goal to perpetuate a culture of error and dysfunction into the earth. Not only did it begin with Adam and Eve, but it was prior to that. I taught y'all this. It was prior to that, that there was a lot of things going on. There was a reason why we have what's called tohu and bohu, where the earth was without form and void, is speaking to chaotic. The earth was chaotic. Okay? Satan from the beginning has been trying to usher in a culture of error on the earth. And this is why Adam and Eve was given the charge to what? Guard, keep, protect, shield the garden. Okay? Why? Because this culture of error had been introduced. So God wanted to make a people in his image and in his likeness that would not follow after that error. But that error crept in, and now you have Cain, who is born, who has followed after that same demonic culture and has perpetuated that to his children. His children now influences the others of Seth's line. They begin to intermingle with one another. Not only does that happen, but now we have the 200 plus angels, Melechim, who did not keep their first estate according to the book of Jude, which Jude got that from the book of Enoch, that they did not keep their first estate. What is their first estate? The heavens. They descended and began to mingle and interrelate with women, and they bore what is known as the Nephilim, the giants, producing an even more wicked culture, all of them being seduced by the evil inclination, which has come to introduce a culture of wickedness. All of them. Ushering in a culture that is anti-Abba, okay? Anti-heaven, anti-righteousness, anti-Elohim, anti-Yahweh. They introduced this culture to mankind. And God has been doing everything to rid the earth of this culture. And this is why he judged the earth with a flood, not only to judge the earth for their sins and show them that he would not tolerate this type of injustice, but also to wipe the slate clean, to give mankind a fresh start to get away from that culture. But time and time again, the enemy again begins to what? Seduce man with the evil inclination to embrace this wicked culture. And here we have again this wicked king Nimrod. And we have a righteous man, Abram. They're toe-to-toe on this thing regarding the God of the universe and these force entities. Okay? He said, I thought you would teach your servants the upright way, but you have not done this, but have filled the whole earth with your sins and the sins of your people who have followed your ways. Do you not, or have you not heard that this evil which you do, our ancestors sinned therein in the days of old, and the eternal Elohim brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed them all, and also destroyed the whole earth on their account? And will you and your people rise up now and do like unto this work in order to bring down the anger of Yahuwah Elohim, the Lord our God of the universe, and to bring evil upon you in the whole earth. Now, therefore, put away this evil deed which you do and serve the Elohim of the universe, as your soul is in his hand, and then it will be well with you. And if your wicked heart will not hearken unto my words, to cause you to forsake your evil ways, and to serve the eternal Elohim, then will you die in shame. And in the latter days, you, your people, and all who are connected with you, hearing your words or walking in your ways. And when Abram had ceased speaking before the king and princes, Abram lifted up his eyes to the heavens, and he said, Lord, the Lord sees all the wicked, and he will judge them. I know they are near tight. I know they tight. Because here comes this man. He's supposed to, first of all, he's supposed to be dead. I told Terah to go kill him, and he didn't. He's supposed to be dead. But now he is vexing us and coming against our culture. He's coming against our policies. He's coming against our government. He's coming against our delegations. He's coming against everything that we stand for. And he's right about it. He's bringing correction. Come on now. And they can't stand it. They hate it. They hate it. And when the king heard the words of Abram, he ordered him to be put into prison, and Abram was 10 days in prison. And at the end of those days, the king ordered that all the kings and princes and governors of different provinces and the sages should come before him, and they sat before him, and Abram was still in the house of confinement. He was in there for 10 days, y'all. For 10 days. Let's continue. And the king said to the princes and sages, have you heard what Abram the son of Terah has done to his father? Thus has he done to him, and I ordered him to be brought before me, and thus has he spoken. His heart did not misgive him, neither did he stir in my presence. And behold, now he is confined in the prison. Neither did he stir in my presence. What does that mean? He wasn't fearful. He wasn't nervous. And therefore, decide what judgment is due to this man who rivaled the king, who spoke. He reviled the king, who spoke and did all the things that you heard. And they all answered the king, saying, the man who reviles the king should be hanged upon a tree. What they say? Cursed is the man that hangs on the tree in the book of Leviticus. But having done all the things that he said, and they basically wanted to lynch this man. And having despised our Elohim, our gods, he must therefore be burned to death. For this is the law in this matter. If it pleases the king to do this, let him order his servants to kindle a fire both night and day in your brick furnace, and then we will cast this man into it. And the king did so, and he commanded his servants that they should prepare a fire for 3 days and 3 nights in the king's furnace, that is, in Kasadim, in the place of Chaldees. And the king ordered them to take Abram from the prison and to bring him out to be burned. And all the king's servants, princes, lords, governors, judges, and all the inhabitants of the land, about 900,000 men, stood opposite the furnace to Abram. And all the women and little ones crowded upon the roofs and towers to see what they were doing with Abram. And they all stood together at a distance, and there was not a man left that did not come out that day to behold the scene. And when Abram was come, the conjurers of the king and the sages saw Abram, and they cried out to the king, saying, our sovereign Lord, surely this is the man whom we know to have been the child at whose birth the great star swallowed the 4 stars, which we declared to the king now 50 years since. And behold, now his father has also transgressed your commands and mocked you by bringing you another child which you did kill. And when the king heard their words, he was exceedingly wroth, and he ordered Terah to be brought before him. So here you go. See, this would never happen if he would never snitched on his son, y'all. You get upset with your son for destroying some wordless idols, powerless idols that can't even deliver you. You go tell the king, and now you're getting caught up, and now you're about to get thrown in the furnace too. And the king said, have you heard what the conjurers have spoken? Now tell me truly, how did you? And if you shall speak truth, you shall be acquitted. And seeing that the king's anger was so much kindled, Terah said to the king, my lord and king, you have heard the truth, and what the sages have spoken is right. And the king said, how could you do this thing, to transgress my orders and to give me a child that you did not beget, and to take value for him? And Terah answered the king, because my tender feelings were excited for my son at that time. And I took a son of my handmaid, and I brought him to the king. And the king said, who advised you to do this? Tell me, do not hide aught from me, and then you shall not die. And Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence, and he said to the king, it was Haran, my eldest son, who advised me to do this. And was in those days, that Abram was born 2 and 30 years old. He was 32 years old at the time. But Haran did not advise his father to do anything. For Terah said said this to the king in order to deliver his soul from the king. This man is a coward. Do y'all understand what's taking place here? He keep throwing his sons under the bus to save himself, and you would think that a good father would stand before his sons. He would put himself. He would die for his sons. This man keep trying to give up his sons so they could die instead of him. He is not a good father. He's not a good father. And the king said to Terah, Haran your son, who advised you to this, shall die through fire with Abram. For the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the king's desire and doing this thing. And Haran at that time felt inclined to follow the ways of Abram, but he kept it within himself. And Haran said in his heart, behold, now the king has seized Abram on account of these things which Abram did. And it shall come to pass that if Abram prevail over the king, I will follow him. But if the king prevail, I will go after the king. And when Terah had spoken this to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abram. And they brought them both, Abram and Haran, his brother, to cast them into the fire, and all the inhabitants of the land, and the king's servants and princes, and all the women and the little ones were there, standing that day over them. And the king's servants took Abram and his brother, and they stripped off all their clothes, except their lower garments, which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords, and the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both into the furnace. And Yahuwah loved Abram, and he had compassion over him. And Yahuwah came down and delivered Abram from the fire, and he was not burned. But all the cords with which they bound him with burned, while Abram remained and walked about in the fire. And Haran died when they had cast him into the fire, and he was burnt to ashes, for his heart was not perfect with Yahuwah. He had not made a decision, y'all. And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were also burned. 12 men of them died. Now, y'all, what this sound like? Somebody tell me what this remind them of.
The end in Revelation.
That's what you got?
I heard cast into the fire.
What does this story remind you of? They got thrown into the furnace. Haran dies. Abram
Oh,
didn't.
Shadrach, Abednego.
There we go.
Yeah,
Shadrach.
3 Hebrew boys.
Yeah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's who this remind me of the first time I read it. It's not the first time for somebody to be thrown into but this is the thing. See, when we in Genesis and it tells us that Haran had died, which was Sarai's father. This was Sarah's father. This is Sarah and Lot's father, that he had died. We don't get told how he died. We just know that he died. And because he died, Lot and Sarah went with Abram. They wasn't going to stay with Terah. Now we know why they wasn't going to stay with Terah. Because Terah gave their daddy up. Now we know why. Because they saw the disloyalty of their grandfather. That he was only willing to save himself. So they didn't want to be under that regime. So they decided to follow Abram. One, because they knew that their father was already kind of leaning towards that, even though it was an inward thing. But they decided to follow Abram. And we know Sarah ended up marrying Abram. Okay? Let's go. Uh And Abram walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights, and all the servants of the king saw him in the fire, and they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abram walking about in the midst of the fire. Even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord which he was bound is burned. And when the king heard their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So he sent other faithful princes to see this matter, and they went and saw it and told the king. And the king rose to go and see it, and he saw Abram walking to and fro in the midst of the fire, and he saw Haran's body burned. And the king wondered greatly. And the king ordered Abram to be taken out from the fire, and his servants approached to take him out, and they could not, for the fire was round about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. And the king's servants fled from it, and the king rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abram out of the fire, or that you shall not die. And the servants of the king again approached to bring Abram out, and the flames came upon them and burnt their faces to the eight of them died, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire, lest they should be burned, the king called to Abraham, O servant of God. Oh, now he the servant of God, who is in heaven, go forth from amidst the fire and come hither before me. And Abram hearkened to the voice of the king, and he went forth from the fire and came and stood before the king. And when Abram came out, the king and all his servants saw Abram coming before the king, and his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, but the cord with which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abram, How is it that you were not burned in the fire? And Abram said to the king, The Elohim of heaven and earth, in whom I trust, and who has all his power, he delivered me from the fire into which you did cast me. And Haran, the brother of Abram, was burnt to ashes, and they sought for his body, and they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Kasdim. And the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abram was delivered from the fire, they came and bowed down to Abram. So at 32 years old, he gave his father the idea to sacrifice a handmaid so that his brother would live. And then he died at 82 because his father betrayed that trust and get it. Actually, no. I'm sorry. He didn't even give his father that idea. It said he never gave his father that idea. His father just wanted to do that to save his behind. That's nuts. That's crazy. And the king, princes, and the inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abram was delivered from the fire, they came and down to Abram. So they say they subjugated themselves to him. And Abram said to them, Do not bow down to me, but bow down to Elohim of the world, who made you, and serve him, and go in his way, for it is he who delivered me from out of this fire, and it is he who created the souls and spirits of all men, the ruach of all men, and formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world, and it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes, that Abram was saved from the fire, and that Haran was burned. And the king gave Abram many presents, and he gave him his 2 head servants from the king's house. The name of one was Oni. The name of one was Oni, and the name of the other was Eliezer. Oh, see, now we know where Eliezer come from. Eliezer was given to him from Nimrod. And all the king's princes and servants gave Abram many gifts of silver and gold and pearl. And the king and his princes sent him away, and he went in peace. And Abram went forth from the king in peace, and many of the king's servants followed him, and about 300 men joined him. See, this is all making sense, y'all, because it's matching up with Genesis. Because remember when Abram went to war for Lot, he only had 300 men. I think he only had 300 men. We know about Eliezer. And Abram returned on that day and went to his father's house, and he and the men that followed him, and Abram served Yahuwah Elohehu all the days of his life, and he walked in the ways of he walked in his ways and followed his Torah. He followed his instructions. And from that day forward, Abram inclined the hearts of his sons, the sons of men, to serve Yahuwah. And at that time Nahor and Abram took unto themselves women, the daughters of their brother Haran. The woman of Nahor was Milcah, and the name of Abram's woman was Sarai. And Sarai, the woman of Abram, was barren. She had no offspring in those days. And at the expiration of 2 years from Abram's going out of the fire, that is the 52nd year of his life, behold, King Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne, and the king fell asleep and dreamed that he was standing with his troops and host in a valley opposite the king's furnace. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming forth from the furnace, and that he came and stood before the king with his drawn sword, and then sprang to the king with his sword. And the king fled from the man, for he was afraid. And while he was running, the man threw an egg upon the king's head, and the egg became a great river. The egg became a great river. It's a right here. And the king dreamed that all his troops sank in that river and died. And the king took flight with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. And the king looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely dresses as the garments of kings, and had the appearance and majesty of kings. And while they were running, the river again turned to an egg before the king, and there came forth from the egg a young bird, which came before the king. I hate when to do this. Let me go down. I think I was on verse like 50 something. Yes. Two Agus first. And the young bird plucking out your and that which you saw of the no, let me go back. And as what you have said, no, let me go back. And while they were running, the river turned to an egg before the king, and there came forth from the egg a young bird, which came before the king, and flew at his head and plucked out his eyes. And the king was grieved at the sight, and he awoke out of his sleep, and his spirit was agitated. And he felt a great terror. And in the morning, the king rose from his couch in fear, and he ordered all the wise men and magicians to come before him. This devil keep playing with me. He ordered all the wise men and magicians. I think I'm too far down. Give me a second, guys. Got to get the place back. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna read it from my whatchamacallit, because this is nuts that this keep happening, and it's a distraction, and we're not dealing with that. You guys can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just follow suit with me on the phone, because this is not. I'm not gonna keep entertaining this because it keep cutting out. So let me pull it up here. Chapter 12, go down about verse 50. I think we was on 57. Okay. And while the king while they were running, the river again turned to an egg before the king, and there came forth from the egg a young bird, which came before the king, and flew at his head, and plucked out the king's eyes. And the king was grieved at the sight, and he awoke out of his sleep, and his ruach, his spirit, was agitated, and he felt a great terror. And in the morning the king rose from his couch in fear, and he ordered all the wise men and magicians to come before him when the king related his dream to them. And a wise servant of the king, whose name was Anuku, okay, or Anuki, Anuku or Anuki, answered the king, saying, "This is nothing else but the evil of Abram and his seed, which will spring up against my Lord and king in the latter days. And behold, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will war with my king, and they will smite all the king's hosts and his troops. And as to what you have said concerning 3 men which you did see, like unto yourself, and which did escape, this means that only you will escape with 3 kings from the kings of the earth, who will be with you in battle. And that which you saw of the river, which turned to an egg as at first, and the young bird plucking out your eye, this means nothing else but the seed of Abram, which will slay the king in latter days. This is my king's dream, and this is its interpretation. And the dream is true, and the interpretation which your servant has given you is right. Now, therefore, my king, surely you know that it is now 52 years since your sages saw that this at the birth of Abram. And if my king will suffer Abram to live in the earth, it will be to the injury of my lord and king. For all the days that Abram lives, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. For this was known formerly at his birth. And why will not my king slay him, that his evil may be kept from you in latter days? And Nimrod hearkened to the voice of Anuki, and he sent some of his servants in secret to go and seize Abram and bring him before the king to suffer death. And Eleazar, Abram's servant, whom the king had given him, was at that time in the presence of the king, and he heard what Anuki had advised the king, what the king had said to cause Abram's death. And Eleazar said to Abram, "Hasten, rise up and save your soul, that you may not die through the hands of the king. For thus did he see in a dream concerning you, and thus did Anuki interpret, and thus all did Anuki advise the king concerning you." And Abram hearkened to the voice of Eleazar, and Abram hastened and ran for safety to the house of Noach and his son Shem. And he concealed himself there, and he found a place of safety. And the king's servants came to Abram's house to seek him, but they could not find him. And they searched throughout the country, and he was not to be found. And they went and searched in every direction, and he was not to be met with. And when the king's servants could not find Abram, they returned to the king, but the king's anger against Abram was stilled as they did not find him, and the king drove from his mind this matter concerning Abram. And Abram was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month until the king had forgotten this matter. But Abram was still afraid of the king. And Terah came to see Abram his son secretly in the house of Noah, and Terah was very great in the eyes of the king. And Abram said to his father, "Do you not know that the king thinks to slay me and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advice of his wicked counselors? Whom have you here, and what have you in this land? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be delivered from his hand, lest you perish also through him in the latter days. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that it is through love that Nimrod gives all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestows all this good upon you? And if he do unto you greater good than this, surely these are only vanities of the world. For wealth and riches cannot avail in the day of wrath and anger. Now, therefore, hearken to my voice. Let us arise and go to the land of Canaan, out of the reach of injury from Nimrod, and serve Yahuwah, who created you in the earth, and it will be well with you, and cast away all the vain things which you pursue." And Abram ceased to speak when Noach and his son Shem answered Terah, saying, "True is the word which Abram has said unto you." And Terah hearkened to the voice of his son Abram, and Terah did all that Abram said. For this was from Yahuwah, that the king should not cause Abram's death. we will continue this reading next week. But I hope that this was enjoyable to you guys. There was a lot of stuff read here. Um, a lot. Anybody got anything they want to say? There was a lot read. Um, Abram went through a lot to get to where he was. Who just unmuted? Go ahead.
Oh man, I was gonna say I jumped in here late again, man. I'm sorry about that. I just came out of business meeting, but yeah, man, it was definitely a deep story that definitely I see the connection between here and Genesis, and makes me want to dive back in and just reread, go
Mm-hmm.
back and study.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm glad about that, man. It's so much, bro. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to dive into, man. I mean, even like the context of Haran and how he died and how Abram got Sarai as a wife. You get what I'm saying? Like all of that is we need to have that context so we can understand the
Yes,
dynamic. We can
yes,
understand the family dynamic. We can understand the trauma. We can understand some of the decisions. You get what I'm saying? Why was
yes,
there so much fear of Abram when it came to kings?
absolutely,
You get what I'm saying?
absolutely,
Why did Abram start telling kings that Sarah was his sister? You get what I'm saying? So a lot of this stuff is important.
very.
You
Yes,
get what
sir.
I'm saying? A lot of this
Yes,
stuff is important. Hey, thank you for being here, Cassette. A lot of this stuff is important. So when we understand the history, when we understand the background, we can get into the mind of the man and why he made some of the decisions he made, even though he was a man of faith. See, this is why I love it. This is why I love reading the Bible and reading the words and understanding, getting into the context. You get what I'm saying? Asking questions. Because listen, when you seek, you will find. And that's the issue. We have not sought for the answers. We have been okay with what we have been spoon fed. But once you start to seek, you start to look for the answers. And listen, this is it's all here. It's all here. I appreciate you guys. Anybody else got anything they want to say or add or question or things like that? Tiara?
Um, I was gonna say I have to go back and listen because man, I was so tired. Like I'm dozing off. And last time I woke up, I heard "Cast into the Fire." You was like, "What does that remind y'all of?" The first thing I thought of was Revelation because I didn't hear the rest of the story. I said, "Lord, not I'm on YouTube sounding crazy."
Listen, this the thing though. Let me tell you something. This one, my aunt used to tell me this. She used to tell me this during prayer too, because I used to fall asleep. If I feel peace, and I can understand, especially if someone is sitting here reading to you, it becomes peaceful, and it's gonna put you to sleep if you tired. You get what I'm saying? So
And you know
I
my sleep
I totally understand. You said what, Tiara?
and you know my sleeping schedule is already crazy. So
Mm-hmm. But listen, we definitely gonna get back into this next week. I'm excited. Uh, I'm trying to see. Let me see how Genesis. Let me see how Yasha lines up because Yasha 13 is where we left off. Um, so we'll probably read both of them back to back. We'll probably read Yasha 13 and Genesis 12. But listen, y'all have a great evening. I know I'm going to. Y'all be blessed. Shalom to you all. Shalom to everyone on YouTube, everyone who's going to watch after the live come off. Shalom to you all. You all have a blessed evening. Love you all. Blessings to y'all. Shalom, shalom.